Hello again, Rick here from DXOMARK, and today we've got something you've been asking for, smartphone battles. Today we hold up the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the Pixel 6 Pro and see how they fare against each other in terms of camera abilities, as well as let you figure out which mobile is best for you. We'll go deeper into our scores and data sets to give you the right info you need to make your decision on who wins the battle. As always, comment and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and check out our social media links all down below. And do go visit DXOMARK.com to find out more information on our scoring, testing, and reports. Now let's get to the battle. The comparison of these two devices is very interesting, with both devices providing very high-end camera features at the same price segment. The Apple 13 Pro Max provides a unique HDR experience in video that dominates the competition, thanks to their in-house A14 chip, while also providing an excellent texture skin tone rendering modeling algorithm, cinematic video mode, and close-up macro capabilities. The Pixel 6 Pro represents an important milestone for Google, as the device now supports Google's Tensor chip, accompanied by an impressive hardware setup, being the first Pixel device with 3 camera modules. Going further into hardware specs, the iPhone 13 Pro Max breaks down into similar components to last year's model, with few improvements. The device does offer a trio of 12 megapixel sensors, a wide angle, an ultra wide angle, and a 3x telephoto. These sensors are quite large. The main wide angle lens in particular boasts a massive f1.5 aperture, making the iPhone 13 Pro Max a formidable force in low light conditions. The ultra-wide angle doubles as a macro lens, and we also benefit from a LiDAR sensor to produce more accurate depth estimation on bokeh and cinematic modes. Regarding the Pixel 6 Pro, Google provides a significant improvement of the hardware with respect to previous Pixel devices. There are 3 sensors, a 50 megapixel wide angle, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide angle, and a 48 megapixel telephoto lens with a 4x zoom. Let's get started with how these two devices did in the photo category. As you can see, the overall photo score shows only a minor difference between the two devices, with slightly higher scores in bokeh and preview on the iPhone. And since the Pixel 6 Pro only offers flash off and force flashed on while conducting our night protocol, this affects the night score as well. Let's break down these sub-scores with some of the data we found. In our lab test, the dynamic range or entropy measurements are higher for the Pixel in outdoor and indoor conditions compared to the iPhone. Texture lab measurements are also higher for the Pixel 6 Pro for all conditions except in handheld low light, mainly due to a longer exposure time. Both devices do deliver fast and accurate autofocus in most tested conditions. However, in low light conditions, 5 lux handheld, the Pixel 6 Pro takes longer to converge than the iPhone and is less repeatable. For outdoor conditions, in terms of exposure, both devices deliver an accurate target exposure in most cases, but the HDR plus technology provided by Google is more efficient on very challenging, high dynamic range scenes. Also in outdoor, sometimes a local noise is strongly visible on the Pixel 6 Pro. Thanks to the new 50 megapixel sensor, the Pixel 6 Pro is able to retain fine details that are rendered slightly better compared to the iPhone for outdoor texture. For color outdoor, and with its new inclusive skin tone rendering features, Google manages to make the skin tones natural and neutral. The iPhone's color rendering is also acceptable from an image quality point of view. And as always, DxOMark remains neutral when it comes to color rendering. For indoor lighting conditions, the Google is more efficient on very challenging HDR scenes. In terms of indoor texture, with the combination of a 50 megapixel sensor, HDR Plus and OIS, the Pixel 6 Pro has slightly more fine details compared to the iPhone. On very low light scenes, both devices are providing different kinds of rendering. The Pixel 6 Pro provides a natural rendering with a pretty high target exposure, but the iPhone 13 Pro Max tries to more match the ambience of a scene with a slightly lower but acceptable target exposure. DxOMark remains neutral for color rendering, as this is the choice of manufacturers. On low light scenes, fine details are preserved better on the iPhone, with exposure time on the Pixel 6 Pro being a bit too long, producing a slight blur movements in handheld conditions. In low light, skin tone rendering is sometimes, maybe slightly too saturated on the iPhone 13 Pro. Target exposure of the Pixel 6 Pro is considered too low for a portrait. Let's move on to the night photo score. The main difference for our night protocol is that the Pixel 6 Pro does not provide a flash auto mode. This impacts user experience, especially for portrait scenes. In flash-off modes, both devices deliver very good performances, providing similar results and very good image quality. The iPhone, however, does provide a higher level of fine details. As stated for the Pixel 6 Pro, for shooting our night protocol, flash can only be set to flash off and force flash on, and so this explains the point loss in the Pixel's night score. This is especially not user-friendly for portrait scenes and sometimes for landscapes. The iPhone, however, does detect the scene and makes a judgment to trigger the flash when needed. Moving on to the bokeh or portrait mode score. For our bokeh protocol, we evaluate the quality of the depth estimation and natural rendering of the blur applied. Another important aspect we also take into account is the focal length used. with higher focal lengths yielding higher scores. Both devices deliver precise depth estimation, but the Pixel 6 uses its wide camera at 25mm, with a crop giving the resulting focal length of 37mm according to our analyzer measurements, while the iPhone uses its 3x tele module at 80mm to simulate the blurring effect. The blur gradient applied on the iPhone is smoother and more progressive than the Pixel, producing a more natural lens effect. In the preview protocol, we analyze the device's WYSIWYG capabilities, which is the difference between the preview on screen and the final capture. So basically, what you see is what you get. In terms of target exposure and dynamic range, the two devices provide a very good WYSIWYG experience. But with bokeh portrait mode, the Pixel does not offer any depth of field effect on the preview, and loses points compared to the iPhone, which produces a rendering really close to the capture. Checking out our zoom score, which encompasses both wide and tele, for our zoom protocol, the Pixel 6 Pro loses some points because of a narrow field of view in ultra-wide mode, compared to the iPhone. 16mm for the Pixel versus 12mm for the iPhone. This graph shows the whole focal range evaluated on our zoom protocol, from the ultra-wide to the extra-long range. We can see that the iPhone starts its focal range with an ultra-wide of 12mm against 16mm for the Pixel. Then the gap to the tele module in the iPhone is reduced, which allows it to have better image quality on the whole, from 26mm to 75mm, unlike the Pixel, which only covers 25mm to 105mm. In wide default mode, the field of view of the Pixel 6 Pro is more narrow compared to the iPhone. In close range conditions, both devices deliver quite similar performances. The iPhone produces a very slight, higher level of texture. In medium range, the Pixel 6 Pro produces a level of texture lower than the iPhone. The iPhone in this range switches to its tele module, while the Pixel remains in its wide module. But in long range, the Pixel provides better results, thanks to its 4x optical zoom compared to the 3.5 available on the iPhone. So as you can see, a lot of components make up our photo score, showing the pros and cons of each device and giving you a better idea of its performance. Alright, let's take a look now at our video scores. Overall in video, the Pixel scores a 115, but the iPhone's a bit higher at 119. The difference we found mainly due to the excellent results of the iPhone's exposure and dynamic range. Apple's new A14 chipset delivers a wide dynamic range for our most challenging scenes in video, with clipping on shadows less visible than the Pixel 6 Pro. For indoor video, bright and dark areas are well recovered with an accurate target exposure on the subject's face. In low-light video, bright areas are well recovered, with a higher target exposure on deep skin tones compared to the Pixel. Lab measurements show that the Pixel 6 Pro produces a higher level of noise in most tested lighting conditions, especially in low light. So for us, and our scoring system, the Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max inches just higher than the Google Pixel 6 Pro in our camera score rankings, mostly for its HDR video and preview imaging. But remember, both devices are of the highest build quality out there, and they're great for all photo and video usage and conditions. We also hope this video shed a little light on what makes each device different from one another in terms of both video and photo imaging quality. And these devices do also offer many extra features outside of tested default conditions, and may be interesting to you based on your photographic needs. The iPhone 13 Pro Max also offers night mode with each of its camera modules, ultra-wide, wide, and tele. In video, cinematic mode allows for depth control and focus point transitions, and also for recording in ProRes formats, as well as offering many photographic styles and signatures. The Google Pixel 6 Pro's extra features include Magic Eraser to eliminate unwanted elements from an image, Face Unblur to sharpen moving portrait shots, Motion Mode for action pans and long exposure, as well as Top Shot. So there you have it, our camera score battle and breakdown of the Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max and the Google Pixel 6 Pro. We hope this helps you to not only see some of the differences in image quality between the two devices, but also that it teaches you about some of the tests we perform and data sets that we gather at DXOMARK. And as always, leave your comments and make sure to subscribe down below and let us know what you'd like to see next. Full reports, more info about what we do and how we test, as always, are available on DXOMARK.com. That's all from us here. See you next time. Rick out.